Damn it, I missed it.
What's up, beautiful people? We back again. Thank you for tuning in once again. Another Thursday. Chopping up with about Sister Lorde. And today is her birthday, of course. If you haven't noticed, if you go to Google, the thing, I don't know what it's called. What is the Google?
Google Doodle.
Google Doodle is Audre Lorde for today. So just a little tidbit. So maybe we was driven that way by the ancestor to go and do this work that it would coincide with her birthday. So which works out outstanding. So happy birthday to the ancestor, Sister Audre Lorde. So we're still reading Sister Outsider. And this week's essay is Uses of Anger. This is I'm looking forward to this conversation. I've been waiting for this. Honestly, tell y'all the truth, this is how I came to this text, was this essay right here. Nick may not remember this, but Dr. Sheila Elliott, I don't know her last name now. She's married. Hodge. Dr. Sheila Elliott Hodge. I had said something in the class. I was mad as so-and-so and so-and-so. I was hot. She's like, you just preach angry, you talk angry. She said, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you need to learn how to use that anger. You need to go read Audre Lorde's essay, Uses of Anger. And actually reading that essay took me down the road of doing the work of Black Rage. Because it was when I read this sentence, my anger is a response. And that was the kind of the push that launched me into saying, I don't always have to start it. I can respond when someone says something to me, because in this text or in this essay, you see, she's always saying it's to be angry in the face of racism is all right. And I had never, even reading Baldwin in, the far next time anyway, later essays and things, he changes that notion a little bit, but he never even says it in that way. Cone, you see it a little bit, but she's like giving us permission, like, look, she giving us loaded weapons and saying, go and run up in folks' face and be angry. And for me, that was like the gospel at that time. That Matthew 6:33, suffering violence. I was gung-ho. I was ready for it because I needed that, because I had never seen it or had experienced it before until I read this particular essay. Even though she says women responding to racism, she opens it pretty much and says any folk that's of color, anyone dealing with racism. And I took it as a open season on racism. And that was what, 2015, 16, I would say.
What, when you read
when we had that class with Dr.
Actually,
Elliott.
it was 14.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, that was
the spring of 14.
Yeah,
that
so
was one of my first classes. So yeah,
so,
spring of 14.
I mean, so this is when I got introduced, because I didn't really know who she was then. And then I read that essay. I would have bought this book. It was actually in the library. Then I bought it because of that conversation. And learning how to harness and galvanize this anger. But, now I have my issues with the whole anger because it seems more like rage, but she uses both interchangeably.
Interchangeably, yeah.
Rage, She uses another one too, rage and something else. I just can't call it right now. But she uses all of them to say, look, we it don't matter. This is what's happening at that moment.
Well, let me say this. This is real rich, and we could do a whole series on just anger and especially how she phases it. One of my first appointments with one of my new therapists, he came in the lobby and picked me up, and we sat down in his office and we prayed first. He said, "May I pray with you?" And we prayed. And the first thing he said was, he said, "So you've come here to deal with your anger issues." And you guys know me pretty well. I'm a very jovial person all the time. But his issue wasn't that how I display my anger. It was how I didn't display my anger. And he says, because he said he could tell it in the way my shoulders were slumped. He said, "You're carrying stuff right now. I could see it." And of course, I wanted to deny this, but I learned during my chaplaincy that if you deny something, it's probably on point. And so I said, "Well, help me with this." I said, because I try not to escalate things, because when it comes out like it comes out in a way that I can't control it. I don't want to be that type of person. So he said,
Can't hear you, Martin.
Yeah, somebody tried to call in. Sorry. And so he was like, "Well, how do you display your anger?" I said, well, usually I get to a certain point and I start yelling. He said, "Well, give me another way to do it." I said, "I don't know any other way." He said, "Let me show you." "Martin, I'm very angry with you." I was like, well, that's wow. I mean, that was after that point, I was like, this is my dude for life, because no one ever said that. I never seen that where you could use words and you didn't have to yell, you didn't have to throw things, you didn't have to use profanity to show that you were angry. You could just say you was angry. But it's like I needed that permission from him to say, yeah, you can do it a different way. So that's why I think what she's saying is so rich for us in all aspects of our lives.
Well, read this chapter for me really pinpointed this westernized misunderstanding of what anger really is. And to kind of piggyback off of what Martin said, it's not necessarily the action, it's the response. And I think she says it in there that her response is anger, but she never talks about how she acts. Well, I won't say acts upon anger, but it gives me a avenue to express my anger. And so she really unlocks Pandora's box for me of not trying to suppress a feeling that I feel, or not trying to coddle or put barrettes and bows on a feeling, because culture has said that anger is bad or anger is wrong, but she's given me a new avenue to express really what I feel when I'm angry or when I'm upset. And I took from her this women against race, or anger against race, and women against uses of anger, that it's all about how it's addressed or how it's viewed that makes the importance, not necessarily the act itself.
Now say that last part one more time. It's all about how it's viewed.
Yeah, because she talks about this piece of difference, how you try to put difference in the middle to kind of separate it. And she says when we as women come to a place to where we can meet no matter what side of the coin we're on, and we can express this anger.
Since you said that, what does that mean for sisters? And when I say sisters, I mean black women, that is. Black women who do this now, because we may be able to take that, but black women who function in anger are not perceived with such joy as you have just articulated.
Oh well, I've held on to this for years since it happened. Look at how westernized culture painted Michelle Obama. That's just an angry black woman.
But Nick, I want to even make it personal. I'm not even talking about westernized. If you're saying westernized to kind of give us an escape out of it, I'm talking about black men.
Well,
brothers, we know, cats, we know, our family, our friends, cats that we go to, that you go down to the church with, or to you go to the movies with, or whomever you work with.
Absolutely,
say the same thing. How many of them cats say, "I don't want to marry that old black girl"? She mean.
She's just a bitter, mean old woman. Like, I mean, we see it in the church.
So how? But
when you
see, but for us, or for me, it was liberating.
From Aunt Audre Lorde's perspective,
I'm saying what Audre Lorde was saying was liberating for me.
Yeah,
but for the sisters, when the sisters operate in that same liberated space, in what Miss Lorde is saying, majority of the brothers, not all, the majority, or many, let me say many brothers won't be able to take that because it threatens their manhood.
Well, that for me goes back to the whole conversation we had last week. Mm-hmm. It puts the mirror in front of our faces.
Right.
Like, we have to. This is a table where we have to create a table where everybody is welcome. No matter what you come to the table with, everybody has to be welcome. And this goes back to last week's conversation, and it also transitions back to Angela Davis's conversation. We all have to be at this table together respectfully for everybody's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And until we get to that point, there's no room forward. And so we're stuck. And when I was reading this chapter, it took me back to the master's tool will never dismantle the master's house. Mm-hmm. I dismantled this idea of you being angry and you being allowed to be angry, because your anger, no matter how it's addressed, if it comes out, it begins to dismantle my house. So I want to make your anger look evil. I want to dehumanize your anger. So until it's really addressed into a point to where it's respectfully understood, like Martin said, until you give me that key to understand, it's not necessarily, I can be angry and not be visceral. I can be angry and not act out. I can be angry and not tear up things and as the old folks say, rearrange furniture. I can just address calmly that I am angry. I am upset. I have issues with the status quo. Until we get to that place to where everybody can come to the table and address themselves, we're never going to move forward.
But let me caution you. Based on you remember when she starts talking about the examples.
Mm-hmm.
if the only way that I could come to you is based on your preconceived notions of what angry looks like, then that is what you call the westernized standard of angry.
But see, no,
because
it has to be open. I'm not saying that you have to come in this certain box. Just come to the table.
But what if I come and throw the damn table? Excuse me.
That's fine.
Because just what I just did, and let me show you
your space.
Because what I just did there, even though I said excuse me, I did it intentionally. Because if I come in there and throw it, and I say all manner of things, then some people will be like, "Oh, he just cussed." I told y'all about that moment. I was on this broadcast with this lady, and she was talking about the pandemic and going to church. And she said, "What if your pastor won't makes you come to church?" And I say, "What you mean your pastor gonna make you come to church?" And she said, "Well, what would you do, Reverend folks?" Now, me being intentional about about this whole thing, I said, say it again. Because I was trying to prepare them for my response, but she didn't catch my cue there. I said, well, my suggestion is y'all need to stay your ASS home. And she said, oh. Now, I said, did that shock you? She said, yes. I said, I was intentional about saying that. I said, because you didn't find it appalling that the pastor could make people come to church. And this is at the beginning of the pandemic. There wasn't nobody was talking about no vaccine. We talk about where folk were dying by the thousands, on a constant basis. I said, but you don't find it shocking about that, but you find it shocking that I said ASS. I said, so I said, you're censoring me, but you didn't want to censor the pastor. You see what I'm saying? And so this is this Western construction that you articulated well. This Western articulation of what anger looks like and what anger means. And as Miss Lorde goes through it, she's articulating all these particular things, like what happens when the white academic says to the black academic XYZ, and the black academic is left now to have to deal with the
one of the big issues, and I mean we hear it so often. Tell me how you feel, but don't say it too harshly.
Right.
Like, okay, you can address your feelings, but like dress it up. Like we're in an academic setting, or we're in a professional setting. Like, if I'm angry, you should have respect for my feelings. That however it comes, it comes. Martin, if you have marital counseling, or Walter, you have marital counseling, you ain't gonna tell the counselee, well, express your feelings, but we in the church now. You can't say but so many things. No, express your feelings.
Well, you might, but
because that's the only way healing happens. When you continue to suppress things, you don't allow for that open space for healing to happen. Because now I got to rethink how I feel. Because if I'm feeling deep down a certain way, and you telling me I can't say but a certain thing, now I got to readdress everything in my mind, and I'm not really being totally transparent of how I'm really feeling.
Well, why don't you tell us how you feel then, Nick?
I feel fine, but I'm saying, like, we have to have this open space, this transparent space.
But now, is there, and this is not something that she talks about, where is the line in the transparent space?
She don't talk about that, and
I said that she doesn't talk about that.
I'm like,
but
how far can we push it in this?
She doesn't.
Mentality that you present.
But here's. Let's think about the entirety of what she writes. Is there? I don't want to use that word. Dr. I keep wanting to say Dr. Lorde. I'm gonna call it Dr. Lorde. Is
he earned it.
Yeah, she earned it. Dr. Lorde, she writes, she's an artist. Artists have no boundaries.
Right.
So as she writes about anger, is there, as you read this, she doesn't really, express a place where anger must cease, because she uses terms like annihilation. When anger gets to these points of annihilation, that may be that mark where we stop, because annihilation, there's no coming back from that. But she used it within context.
I think that's the misuse of anger, and this brings me to the quote that I would highlight, page 120 in my book, the last full paragraph. But anger expressed and translated into action in the service of our vision and our future is a liberating and strengthening act of clarification. Anger, what I hear her saying, anger properly expressed and translated is only beneficial. Like it's not gonna contribute to your annihilation. Now, if you misuse that anger, and that's really what I hear Nick saying is, if I can't express how I really feel, then that's really when I begin to get profane and get loud and do all these other things, because you're allowed to have anger. I mean, white men are allowed to be angry.
Oh.
White men are allowed to say,
I
I'm
eat a capital.
defending my family. Patrick Henry famously said, give me liberty, give me death. I'm bringing it back to me, but in particular, if moving it to where Miss Lorde is, a black woman said, give me liberty, give me death. She crazy. Why is she tripping? What is all this? But rightly expressed and rightly translated, this anger leads us to action, so that we have, and it's the and she said, and I love that she says it's clarification, for it is in the painful process of this translation that we identify who are our allies with whom we have grave differences and who are genuine enemies. So if I can't get angry around you, if you can't handle my legitimate anger that's being expressed in a way that you would express it, if it was you, if your mother was raped or your daughter was sold off down the river or whatever, if it was you and you would get the angry enough to curse or whatever else, but you want to allow me to express it, then it's not that we just have differences. You're actually my genuine enemy. You don't mean me no good, as the folks say.
Absolutely. And so what I give you an example of what takes me to the next level. Whenever you try to express your views on racism, the person becomes hypercritical of how your voice, like the person becomes hypercritical of some people that may not have the language I have to articulate their anger. They find ways to passively be aggressive against your anger. And people recognize that immediately, because as African-American men, we have a certain way that we have to frame how we talk in the rooms. As clergy, black clergy, there's a certain ways that we have to be able to talk in order to express our anger. There's no, even Nick, when you said, we talk about coming to the table, everyone is welcome to the table, but that image of the table is people already sitting there. No, I mean, if it's our table, right, all are welcome. No, who's doing the welcoming? If it's our table, if it's a table that we're saying our anger is at this table, then you should be one that come to the table, not necessarily we come to the, because when we think about table, let's keep it real. It's the white man at his table, and we're saying, come listen to us and see how we feel, and that whole is problematic. I mean, it's because you're coming to the table, and I know she mentioned, I think it was last chapter, is it our responsibility to tell those who are oppressors that we're being oppressed? Man, look, if you can open your eyes, like the lady said in the interview, she said, anybody want to exchange places with how black people are in America, treat America, please stand up. Nobody stood up. She's like, you know why? Because you know how they're being treated. You know how they're being treated. I'm gonna shut up at that point. If I get angry.
When she said guilt is not a response to anger, it is a response to one's own action or a lack of action. That took me back to the whole conversation we had of when this idea that Walter brought up last week over justice versus sacrifice. Your guilt does not diminish my anger. Like, it does not diminish my anger. But then she says, after the quote Walter read, she says, anger is loaded with information and
right
and energy.
Energy,
I was
yeah.
like,
Information and
I ain't
energy.
got nothing else to read. Like, I'm done after this. Like, I don't need to read nothing else.
But there's so much more. But you're right. That's it. That's what I'm. But that's what I'm saying. That anger I don't want to use that. I can't think of anything, a better way to say it right now. But there are some people who are allowed to have anger, and it goes back to what we've been talking about as far as power is concerned. But this is really, again, I wish I'd have read this 20 years ago.
Me too.
But to be able to express,
20.
I've got. She really gives me words to express what has been frustrating me for so long. You're telling me I'm angry, but the way you're telling me that I'm angry is exhibiting your hatred. Is what she doesn't call that the response to my anger. She calls it hatred, which is destructive. The hatred with which our anger is met, and the anger, the difference that she's, and again, she's an artist, so she's using words a little bit different than I might use them, but the hatred is differentiated from the anger because the anger is coming from the fact that racism is a sin, is evil, and is killing people. So I have a right to be angry.
Right.
Richard Pryor joke said, right. Joe, I got a right to be hostile. My people been persecuted.
Yeah.
But that's anger. But then you're getting mad, and yet that anger that you're showing is really hatred because I'm pointing out something that you can't really refute. So the only thing you can do is get angry, show your hatred, and as you said, I think it was Nick said, then Martin. No, it was Martin. Then you start nitpicking and you deflect. You start that hatred takes you to a place where you can say, well, they shouldn't be destroying property. Well, why are they out there in the first place?
Yeah.
That their anger drove them out into the street in the first place. And so
it's the same principle of why I wasn't, when I was ready to be defensive with my therapist, that she says defensiveness as in the same, in that same, I think, paragraph or sentence. Well, guilt and defensiveness. I was ready to be defensive because he called me out. Like, he said what I should have already known, which I knew. It wasn't, I know that I repressed my anger. It wasn't that he didn't say anything that was new to me. It's just the fact that hearing somebody call me out, I was ready to be defensive and say, well, no. And it was like, I know if you push back on something, that there's got to be some truth to it. And that's what you have. So, for example, like you were saying, Walter, like, well, you're complaining about racism, but you have a master's degree, you're a successful preacher, and you're down at Mount Pleasant. So why are you, what do you have to be angry about? You got two beautiful daughters. One that just bought a house. Like, Walter, you doing the thing, man. What do you got to be angry? What are you angry about? You got a beautiful wife. What are you being angry about?
So that's how he on the water. Yeah. Got a bald head. Come on.
Yeah, what you angry about? What you know?
And it's funny, but that's exactly a Facebook conversation that I've actually in real life had.
Well, think about
Yeah,
this.
I
That
don't know.
dude, that guy said, as LeBron James, he actually said this. He says, not what's the boy that played for the Dallas Cowboys?
Dak Prescott?
No, the defensive lineman.
Marcellus Wiley.
Yeah, Marcellus Wiley
Oh,
said
Lord.
LeBron James does not experience racism, so he has no reason to be angry because he has $500 million.
And he went to Ivy League school. That's what's sad.
So what you're saying, has been, kind of displayed in that type of idiocy by some of these sports announcers when one has accomplished certain feats in life. Because or he says no, LeBron, and the other boy, Whitlock, talking about, well, LeBron James, they didn't do anything to him. They just put "go home so and so, go home nigga" on his house. They didn't do it to him. It's that type of nonsense.
The hyper criticism.
Yeah.
When you don't want to deal with it.
But here is the other part, and she kind of deals with it. These are from folk who look like us.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't Colin Cowherd or one of the white boys on there. These are from the pseudo brothers on there who are saying this stuff. And Miss Lorde, she deals with this, but she doesn't use kind of this black on black language. She goes with like this: people of color, gay and lesbian community. Mm-hmm. She started going down the other marginalized groups in America to stay away from that type of language.
Right.
I'm gonna read this paragraph and see if y'all had the same. If this hit you all like this. This is the paragraph where it says, "And while we scrutinize the often painful face of each other's anger, please remember that it is not our anger which makes me caution you to lock your doors at night and not to wander the streets of Hartford alone. It is the hatred which lurks in those streets that urge to display us all if we truly work for change rather than merely indulge in academic rhetoric." That is a dope couple of sentences.
I don't know. I'm still trying to tie it together, but reading this chapter this week pushed me all week to just deal with this, and I haven't watched it yet, but this Judas and the Black Messiah. Just think about Fred Hampton and all that went down. It was just like, I don't know how the two, I still haven't put it together, how the two marry, but just reading this chapter and it just, I don't know, like it was almost like these two were like, I don't know, one side, the other side of the sandwich. Like, it was just crazy.
Well, I think when you repress anger, right, it can make you go to the other side. Understand that. I think like Kevin Durant, I think that he was angry. So he said, "Look, I won a championship. I'm going to go to State." Like, instead of just figuring out what's really the issues here, it's just easy to do. It's easy to say, "Well, hey, let me just figure out a way to just survive. I'm gonna be Jason Whitlock. I'm just going the other side where I can be hypercritical." And so that means the hypercriticism misses me because I'm on that side, And so maybe that's the way some people respond to it. Still a response.
But notice, I like her wordplay. Anger does this one thing, and she uses this type of combination. It excavates honesty.
Right.
that's a strange term. Excavate honesty. You talking about, so I'm angry, I'm going to now dig deep into something that other folks don't want me to dig deep into. That's historical, anthropological, sociological. I'm getting in your mess right now. That's why, the quote that Walter talked about, as far as this lets me know who is my friend and who is my enemy. Because once you start digging deep in those who oppose you mess, they getting ready to throw hands. You're getting ready to see these hands. But a friend, if you dig deep in their mess, they will appreciate the fact that you took the time to notice that something was going on, whether right or wrong. They may not always like it, but they will appreciate the fact that you took the time to kind of see them through the nonsense at the moment.
Now, see,
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Walter. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, when I read that excavate, I thought about the digging, but after the archaeologists dig, then they start shifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the dirt falls out, and what's worth keeping stays there. So when my anger is a way of shifting out those people, if you can't hang when I get angry, then I don't need you.
Right.
You're not really for my. Again, you don't mean me no good. If you're gonna run every time I get angry,
and so fake the funk,
and the person that's defensive,
quiet and appeasable.
Yeah, and the person that's defensive,
show my anger. Yeah,
and the person that's defensive is merely doesn't want you to do any sifting and shaking and excavate in terms of them. So that's why when Doc told me about the anger issues, I said, well, I can push against this, but if I let him go ahead and do it, he dug down deep and to find out, well, this is where this is why you do this. This is why you do this. You can do this. This will help you do this, and this is a way to move forward.
Now, then you got a decision to make. Do you want to take it to this path of growth, or do you just want to stay in the destructive?
Will it
continuing on? And I'm not just you obviously knew that, but what I'm saying is that's what I think those. And if we bring it back to our original author here, that's what us as Black men sometimes don't want to hear from Black women. Yeah, that we are being shifted when we can't handle the fact that our women are angry about things that are legitimate.
Right.
Sometimes, more times than we want to admit.
Walter said that.
We just want to. We could.
Well, I think
sometimes
we know we can write it off. My point is, we know we can write it off as because it's already been established by rest of the culture, at least that we can write it off as, well, that's another angry Black woman, and we could get away with it.
Yeah,
and we would be in the clear. But if we really want to take the advice of Martin's, hear what the therapist is saying to us and what Miss Lorde is saying to us, then we'll let ourselves be shifted, and we'll deal with this anger, this legitimate anger, in a way that leads to a positive change.
Because when they both meet,
respect space.
Yeah, because when they both meet, when they both meet, your anger and the person that's receiving it, when they meet, it can be positive. But see, the defensiveness stops it right there. The hypercriticism stops it right there. And what it also does, if you listen in a good way, there will be some things that the person that's oppressed may be able to even say, well, you know what? I didn't see that. But you're never going to get to that part of the conversation when you're defensive, when you're defensive, or you try to respond and try to minimize what the other person is saying. Because honestly, the people don't want to get started with this work. Like Mark Twain said, nobody likes change but a wet baby. And what I realized by going to my therapist, that this is a lifelong process, that I'm never going to ever get this completely right. I have to always go back to my therapist and keep going until I, until it's over, until I die, because it's going to keep resurfacing. It's that deep within us, or within me per se.
Listen, but above that, she says, she uses this other term. She says, the immutable given. Everything y'all said is just that. The immutable given. The sentence is, it wants racism to be accepted as an immutable given in the fabric of your existence.
Right.
That is that right there sums up everything you all have just put together.
Yeah, they're scared. I like the way she said fiery finger, because that finger, when somebody points it, she said fiery finger. Man, I was like, man, this sister bad. Like she can paint a picture.
Wordplay, man.
Fiery finger.
I've already said it. I give.
Yeah. She got us by the chokehold, in the chokehold with this one. Like,
tap out.
Yeah. She won in chapter 3. This right here is, she just blowing us out right now. She's like, she running up the score.
Just run up the score.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
No mercy.
But I think we've kind of already said it. But I think the other thing that, like I said, going back to our relationship with Black women, is that is coming at it as peers, as opposed to I'm going to let her express her anger. Did
you say? What did you say? You said fears or peers?
Peers. P-E-E-R-S.
Okay.
P as in Peter.
Piper.
Yeah, that we come at, and so that what? So that I think it really does change all the conversations if we really recognize each other as peers, and taking all other status and hierarchy, again going back to Dr. Davis, hierarchy and all the other stuff out of play, so that we then can have these conversations truthfully and honestly and in a productive way.
Let me challenge your use of peers there. Is that good? And I'm challenging you in the hope that I can anger you to use your, challenge you to use your anger in a better way. But when we say peers, in the context of how she's written this whole thing, is peers I can't think of the way I want to say this. Does peers put us in a place where it leads to a confrontation, as opposed to saying, this is our partners? Because I assume you were talking about your spouse.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it doesn't have to be my spouse, but I guess it could be. But yeah, I would say that again, I'm talking what I gathered. Like I said, the beneficial use of anger requires me to recognize those who I have a difference with as peers, as opposed to saying. And again, I think she is attacking, like we said, the societal norms and the hierarchy. So again, in the hierarchy, we Black men are above Black women, right? I mean, as the race between racism and sexism and gender roles and all that. So I think part of what I hear her saying is that
hold on, Walter. Let's make sure we clarify. That ain't what we say. That's just the social makeup of America.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
I said social norms.
Yeah. I just want to make sure everybody heard that.
That's the caste system.
Yeah, that ain't what we agree to. We ain't saying that we think that That's just the social norm, the social
It is.
makeup of America. Now continue on, because I want to make sure.
Well,
I don't want nobody to post nothing or come back later and say that Walter said that men are better than women.
Thank you for that
Just
clarification.
clarification. That's all.
Anybody who knows me would know better. But you made me forget what I was saying. But yeah, so I think that the peer relationship again takes this out of, because part of what I hear from men to women and from Black folks to white folks is, again, this question of what do you want? How much do you want us to give you? What do you want us to allow you to do? And all of those questions are the problem. I don't want you to give me, you're not in a position to give me anything. And as a Black man, I'm not in the position to give Black women anything. They're my peers. Or in some cases, maybe to your point, in some cases, they are the intellectual or the physical or whatever superior to me as an individual. Am I making? I want to be clear. So the whole idea that I'm going to allow someone to have anger gives me way too much power.
Mm.
And even to the fact is, even when you come to a person, that's, and say, this is how I feel, and the fact that the person has to come to you, and when you recognize that, if you don't feel guilty that this person has to come to you and express how they feel, their anger about something that you were complicit or explicit in, if that doesn't move you, then I mean, that's where I get frustrated to say, well, how doesn't that move you to hear someone express their anger, and it just doesn't move you, and you immediately say, well, African, I mean, y'all participated in the slave trade too.
But hold up, Martin. But what do you say there when she says guilt is not a response to anger? That's her response. Now, guilt is not a response to anger. It's a response to one's own actions or lack of action.
Yeah, it's defensiveness is what she talks about. I mean, that's what it is.
Well,
it's a way of defense. It's like
she's saying that they're not
trying to shake me up. Yeah.
She's saying they're not really responding to the anger, is what she's for me to be. If Martin came to me and I had legitimately done him wrong, and he expresses anger towards me, and all I feel is guilt, I'm not dealing with what he's sharing with me. I'm not dealing with his anger. I'm dealing with the fact that I don't want to be on the hook. And I did find this, going back to the idea about peers, if we want to go back to that real quick to help clarify what I was trying to say, because she does say it better. And I don't know why I'm trying to say words when she's got it right here for us. On page 122, she says, it implies anger, meaning anger. It implies peers meeting upon a common basis to examine difference. Again, that's the idea about difference that we covered last week. And to alter those distortions which history has created around our difference. So this whole idea, again, that if you look at the history of the country, particularly, but the world, that is this idea that we've created these hierarchies. We've played upon these differences, black, white, yellow, brown, man, woman, straight, gay, all those differences, we have played on those to create distortions that make it possible for me to have certain standing according to society, not according to me, according to society, for me to have standing over certain people and not consider them peers, so that I can then say to them, your anger is not justified.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to sit with that one.
Well, look, a good example when we talk about Brett Kavanaugh, right? He got angry. And then the whole they kind of say, oh, once he got upset because a woman he said that woman wasn't lying. She was telling the truth.
He wasn't angry.
Yeah.
He wasn't angry. He was furious.
Yeah, the fiery finger. He put the nerve of y'all. I was like, what? Multiple people have said this happened, but he got angry, and sure enough, they
And
backed
they
up.
cheered him.
They backed up.
And they
Yeah,
no, they didn't
cheered
have
him.
they
Yeah,
good job. You
yeah.
showed your anger. You showed them your
You
anger.
showed it. Yeah, and then after that, it was a wrap. Let's go ahead and do it. I mean, now let me say this: Clarence Thomas did it as well when he said high tech lynching, but he used it out of that was his male patriarchy because he assimilates with a certain group of folk. I think that has something to do with it too. But and all of a sudden, when he said that, right, all of a sudden it was like, okay, we've made him angry. Uh-oh. We need to push back. Obviously, Dr. Hill's not telling the truth. We need to go ahead and confirm him as justice. So, that's. I mean, just imagine the destruction of those two women and their lives because of that.
But let me ask this question. I remember. I'm not gonna say any names. Walter probably knows the story better than I do. But what happens when white feminist anger, bumps up against black male anger? No, rage. Let's say rage. Because
you get a B. You get a B in the class.
because let me tell you. See, as we look at this, I mean, think about this. This white feminist anger presents itself as the moral authority to say these two black males over here are not competent enough to do the work. So I need to take the authority to check them and present to the professor that they are incompetent. So her white feminist anger then puts us in a space where now she gets to really experience what she thought was anger. She really gets to experience the real rage. Because now we were just addressing what the other people had said. Now she gets to see the response. And now that makes sense a lot more when she says, anger is a response. Because initially, what she thought was anger to the people we were interviewing, when it really was, we're just expressing their grief and their anger. When she saw us really respond to her white feminist pseudo anger, now she's thrown aback. And matter of fact, the all the white feminists who happen to be the professor, she's thrown aback, and then the white male is thrown back because now they haven't seen that from Walter anyway. But because see, now black rage is exploding. She used this thing like she used this word like I think it's detonating. This thing is detonating in their face because now we have taken all that we could take in the face of this white feminist anger.
Well, what you have, Brian, is two hybrids. All right. The hybrid of one person has white privilege, the other person is a female. One person has male privilege, and he's also black. So out of the four major groups in America, you got like we said in America, not us classifying it, but you got the black woman that is not a part of any of those privileges. You got a black man. We have male privilege, but then we're part of the racism element. White women, they feel from the oppression of women, but also have white privilege. And when they come together, right, it's like you're expecting for an explosion because everybody's at that point like how dare you not allow?
That's it, exactly.
How dare you? Right? Yeah, I understand you're African American. I mean, you're male, but how dare you, black man? You see what I'm saying? I am a white female, right? And so that's what you're saying about. And when that comes together, I mean,
let's say white woman. Let's say white woman.
Okay, woman. And so that's why it's so. And I think that Dr. Lorde is saying here about the uses of anger. You know, how you use your anger is important because you can assert your privilege at any time and deny another person of their expression of anger, and that's when we're misusing
Right.
it in a bad way, in a really bad way. That's not constructive at all. It's very destructive. Very destructive. Yeah, very destructive.
Well, we were destructive.
Yeah,
I don't mind being destructive personally.
Y'all got to be.
Yeah, we gotta.
I would say so. Maybe to kind of, I don't know if the
I didn't tell the story, but for a reason.
Need to hear a little bit of the story that me and Brian were working in a group with two other students, one white male and one white man and one white woman, and so ended up being a dispute. But so that I think really that the meeting with the professor was the tipping, but there were the meetings we had throughout the semester trying to do the project really deals with this whole idea of the dynamic. But yeah, the anger comes out when we were finally sitting there, and you know, and I don't mean to laugh, but she tries to use the tears to make it okay for what has been done. You know, the oppression, really, the hatred that had been showed. She was, I believe, I don't know if it was anger. I think she was hiding behind the tears more so than anything. And then that's when my anger is expressed in a way that surprised me, and that I simply said it. I hadn't been to your therapist, Martin, but I simply said, no, the problem is they just don't want to work with white. They just don't want to work with black people.
Yep.
And that was it. And that's all I said. I didn't say any more after that. And so that's when the white privilege and the professor being aware of being sensitive, I think, to racial issues really played into that and said, well, okay, well, obviously this group was was doomed from the beginning. She didn't say all that, but doomed from the beginning, and so was able to then, you know, work it through. But and again, I didn't have this language to use because I hadn't read this, but what I see now is that that was the proper use of anger, to really show that no, this is justified. What we're feeling, what me and Brian are feeling, is justified because we have been wronged. We were cut out of other meetings. They did things and all of this. When we were supposed to be working as a group, we have been wronged, and our anger is justified. So don't come in here with your tears and try to play this up and try to. No, not going to work. This is what happened.
So, Walter, what if, and I'll use my therapist, what if you had said something when you saw it initially? Would you think that would have?
Oh, I think we did.
We did.
Oh, yeah. Also, y'all did.
Yeah,
okay.
we did.
That's what I'm saying. All the meetings and stuff leading up to, but when it got to the point, we were end of the semester and everything like that, when we got to that point, then it was like, and I was trying to, you know me, I'm playing the harmonizer. I'm telling Brian, okay, when we go and talk to him this time, this is what we're going to say, and it's going to be all right. And Brian's like, okay, but, you know. And so then when we finally got to in the professor's office, I was like, okay, well, they just don't like black people. That's it.
And you notice one thing that I didn't read, unless I missed it, and y'all can tell me. Nowhere in here do you notice a reconciliatory. Say that word.
Reconciliatory.
Yeah, that word.
Yeah.
Tone.
Reconciliation.
Yeah.
But what I would say, but it's the, and I don't think she would use that word. I think she
exactly
because I don't think she's Miss Lorde is clear that difference is not bad. Like we don't have to be like.
We don't have to be the same. We don't have to be a carbon copy.
I don't know. I don't think the reconciliation would be a word that she would just use.
But though she may not use the word, there is this kind of implication that we have to work together. Because remember, she's married to a white lady.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think
But so that's what I'm saying. So that's but she
racism.
the fact that I'm married to a white lady, she's still white and I'm still black. Our difference, and I'm not gonna say it well, but and she says it much better. I wish I could find. I have to look for maybe share a quote next week. But the difference is what is good. Like embrace that instead of trying to change that. And I think sometimes that's what we hear when we hear about reconciliation. We think it's that we're all in agreement now. We're all no. We can still disagree. Have that quote that the first quote I read. We can have real, genuine, grave disagreements, and you still be an ally.
Yeah, because the book, Desmond Tutu's book, he talks about racism. Reconciliation is a process, and that whenever you can express your, that begins the process, and hopefully the end of it will be reconciliation. A part of reconciliation. But yeah, that's not an instant thing. That doesn't just happen like, okay, poof, we're reconciled.
Right. Good conversation, brothers. Good conversation. Next week we are jumping on learning from the 60s. Learning from the 60s. And then we'll hit I don't know what.
Hey, Walter,
First
you
thing in the chapter
69, Walter? You born 69?
69.
So me and Walter, y'all can sit out. Me and Walter, this is our time. 68,
y'all can have it. I ain't no way.
Y'all don't need to say nothing.
Well, this is one of the parts where she deals with dealing with Malcolm and his patriarchy.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hey, appreciate you if you tuned in. Remember, survive, cultivate joy, and remember to resist and stay dope. Peace.
Odalo, Jack. That's gonna be my saying at the end of it.
Oh man,